Good morning and welcome to my hobby bench once again. And you may be saying, why am I at my hobby bench? It's March 24th. Well, I can show you with a few pictures as to why I'm at my hobby bench, and the first reason is that I happen to live in Wisconsin. And here's what the weather forecast is for today and the rest of the week. As you can see, it says on the weather widget there, heavy snow. It really wasn't, at the time I took that screenshot, it really wasn't heavy. It was coming down pretty good, but it wasn't a snowstorm. It's windy and there was snow, and it's a rather cool day. But the ground has begun to thaw already, so we're not going to have any kind of accumulation. But as you can see, the rest of the week doesn't look particularly conducive to running engines, which is really what I would like to be doing. But even when the weather gets warmed up, I'm going to have to be stuck doing engine runs on a paved surface of some sort at my partner's place because the ground will just be really gross. So, with all that said, I decided, I was thinking about what kind of a video I could do today, and I decided upon doing a video that's very near and dear to my heart, at least the subject is, and that would be Enya engines. So on the table today, I have 4 examples of Enya 4-stroke engines. I should have said, not, well, all Enya engines are near and dear to my heart, but 4 Enya 4-stroke engines. Now of these 4, 3 of these are mine, 1 of them is a customer's engine. And specifically what I'm going to talk about is how we time Enya engines. I know I've covered it kind of haphazardly in various videos, but this one is going to be dedicated to timing, and I'll show you the timing for all of these engines in a pictorial format. And that's one of the things that's wonderful about these Enya engine manuals, is that every single manual that I have ever seen for a 4-stroke engine, one of their 4-stroke engines, shows the timing diagram. So it's very simple to just follow that. But first, let's talk a little bit about Enya engines in general. As you can see, they all have a similar appearance. Now this design platform dates back to at least the early 80s, and Enya did produce several open rocker engines. I've never had an open rocker Enya engine, so I've never run one, never seen one, never held one, but they did produce them. I think they did a 35 and maybe a 40 for a very short time, and then they went to this design which has stayed the same throughout all these years. And one of the things about this design is that it's very rugged. Enya engines are not known to be light engines at all. They're actually quite heavy, but with that, they're rugged. They're very much like a tank. They can take a lot of abuse, both running abuse by the owner and abuse in crashing, because you crash one of these engines nose in and you're really not going to be damaging push rods or anything like that. And this whole front end is quite stout. So this is a design that has lasted for many, many years. They've never saw fit to change it, and that's a good thing because it works. Now I have, and right here in my hand is an Enya 46 4-cycle engine. This is an engine I just picked up 2 weeks ago or so. I haven't done anything with it yet. I haven't had the time to do a video showing it, haven't had the time to obviously run it, clean it up, nothing. But this is the one we're going to start with as far as showing the timing on. This is my Enya 80 engine. Now, as you'll see with several of Enya's designs, the Enya 80 and the Enya 60 are nearly identical. In fact, the only difference between the two, they're in the same crankcase platform and everything. The only difference is, I think, bore and stroke on both of those. I think the 80 was simply just, it may have just been bored out. I'm not even sure if it was stroked. It might have been, but I'd have to look that up. But if you look closely here, all of their cases were the same, and what they did to show an 80 was they just kind of milled out a little circular area there and just stamped 80. That's the only way you'll be able to tell the difference between an 80 and a 60, because that's what they look like. Now here, I've got my Enya 90. And same thing. Now there are 2 variants of the Enya 120 engine, and I'll kind of get to that. But the first one was just the Enya 120 4-cycle. And it was exactly like this, identical. Bored and stroked. That was it. Same type of thing here. They just did a little milling circular area there and stamped 120. You wouldn't know the difference between a 90 and a 120, the original 120 version. They even had the exact same carb, I mean everything, screw-on type exhaust, everything. Now this one just so happens to be in a mount because when I got it, it came with a mount, or I found a mount that was for this engine. I just figured it was easier to store it in the box like that. Now this is a customer's Enya R120, R120 4-cycle, not 120 4-cycle. Even though it says 120 4-cycle, this is an R120. And the biggest ways you can tell the difference between an R120 and a 120 is, first of all, the carbs are completely different. The intake manifold is completely different. So pretend like this one is a 120 because it's basically what the regular 120 would look like. So the R120's they're completely different engines. They may look similar in design, but they're completely different engines. And this has got, the R120's got a lot larger carb. It's mounted differently. The exhaust is not a screw-in type exhaust. It has it just kind of it pushes into the inlet there, or the exhaust, and then it's just held in place by a bracket and 2 screws. And this is I like this attachment method for exhaust, and I really wish that other engine manufacturers would have done this, because I really think this is a good design. You can't screw up the threads. You can't end up buying an engine that's been crashed and then the threads are all screwed up. This is a pretty robust design. So that is kind of a quick overview of the Enya 4-stroke engines. Now, they did make the last 4-stroke they made single cylinder. Well, they never made a twin. So the last 4-stroke engine they made was an Enya R155, and I believe so. This 120 R120 is a different case. It's a larger case. So it's a larger engine in general, which obviously equates to being a heavier engine also. So the 155 was in this platform, this case, and I believe it shares a lot of the same components as the R120. Now they did have an Enya 53. I don't have an example of an Enya 53, but the Enya 53 was basically the same thing as the 46 4-cycle. And they actually had a 41 4-cycle too, and they had a 41 4-cycle diesel engine. So Enya's been quite diverse. But anyway, the 53 I believe was just a bored and maybe stroked version of the 46. So there was no real size difference in that platform. Now, one thing that everybody kind of complains about with Enya engines is, well, you got that forward facing glow plug and that sucks. Well, when you buy a new in box Enya engine that comes with all the accessories, they have a little glow plug adapter that you stick on there, and then you just kind of wire it to your starting mechanism. I use alligator clips. It's never been a big deal for me to have wire up alligator clips and attach it to my knife starter. So as far as I'm concerned, that's really a trivial thing. So now let's get to the timing. So I've got the timing diagram up here of the Enya 46 4-cycle right now. And as you've seen, if you watch either the video that I made on this, my Enya 80 when I did a cleanup, or some of the other Enya videos, I believe I showed the timing. So let me show you first, let me go back and just show you a picture of what the timing shaft looks like coming out of the case. And you can very clearly see that there are 2 marks on the top of the shaft. Now that shaft is attached to a longer piece on the inside with a hole in it, and that's where the crank pin connects to it. So, and those timing marks will always line up with that hole being at top dead center. So know that, and know that those timing marks always fall on the timing shaft itself. Those 2 marks are in the gap. They are not on a tooth. They are in the gap. So you have to know that. That's important to know, that the timing marks are in a gap, not on a tooth. When it comes to the timing gears themselves, the timing marks are on the teeth, so that you mesh or you line up the tooth with the tooth in the gap with the corresponding dot and mark. So here's the example of the Enya 46 4-cycle, and it's just a little cut and paste that I done from the manual. And you'll see where it shows the inlet and the exhaust. So don't concern yourself about the orientation of the cam lobes, because you'll see in these other diagrams the cam lobes can vary. So it's not about the cam lobe positioning, it's all about the timing marks. And so this is the timing marks for the Enya 4-cycle or 46 4-cycle. Now if we show now the Enya 60, now the Enya 60 and Enya 80 are identical. In fact, they didn't even make an Enya 80 manual. They always would just put an addendum to it, and the addendum was simply just a list of separate parts or parts that were different between the 60. So the 80 and the 60 were identical. They share this exact same thing, and as you can see on this Enya 61, the cam lobes, if you were to look at those and pay attention to those, which you shouldn't when it comes to timing, they're oriented differently than the 46. So don't pay attention to the direction of the cam lobes. It means nothing as far as timing these engines. Everything revolves around the notches on the timing shaft and the marks or the dots, the timing dots on the timing gears. Now, when I was doing the Enya 46 4-cycle, that is a considerably smaller case. So the dots, looks like maybe the case between the 46 and the Enya 80 and 60 are even slightly different sizes. So it can be difficult to find and see those dots. And the reason I'm emphasizing this is because when I was doing the 80, when I was cleaning up the 80, I was having a hard time, really hard time finding those timing dots, even on those timing gears. So I just realized, and I relied on the fact that I know that the dot lies on a tooth. So, and I had to sand and use some high, 600 or 400 grit sandpaper to really clean off the face of that gear so I could try to find those dots. And one of them was kind of mismarked. It was really kind of looked like when they stamped it, they kind of half hit it and half missed it. So it was like, ugh, on the tooth and off the tooth. But I know that they are supposed to be on the teeth for the timing gears. So next, let's look at the Enya 90 4-cycle. Now this one looks very similar to the 60, whereas the cam lobe positioning, but again, you're not going by cam lobes, you're going by notches on the timing shaft and the mark. So that's that. We do see something slightly different with the R120. And let's bring that up and I'll show you. On the R120, which I just did the timing on this, and I've got a couple other pictures of this that I'll show you, I'll put up here also. It has, those timing gears are identical. So on the smaller engines, you have specifically a separate timing inlet and exhaust, or intake and exhaust gear. Very different. In fact, they're completely different because the way they stack up in the engine, one overlaps the other because of the size. On the R120 and R155, or 155, it's so much larger that they didn't have to do this stacking thing. They could just spread them apart. So those timing gears are identical. And that's why they have two timing marks. They have two timing dots on those because you can interchange those. So, but just know that when you're timing it, you're only paying attention, you're not paying attention to the timing dots on the upper portion of the gear because that's not where the lines are showing. You're looking at the dots that interface with the spline on the timing gear, timing shaft itself. So even though there are two dots on R120 and 155 timing gears, that's just because those gears are interchangeable. You could flip-flop them and put them the other way and it wouldn't matter. At least, let me see if you... Pretty sure that's correct. Pretty sure that's correct. Why else would they put two dots on there? It looks like my battery is... No, I'm good. So anyway, that is the video for today, and hopefully it gives you a better understanding of how to time these wonderful engines that I think are quite underrated in the hobby community. I mean, they do have a good following, but you don't see the following of Enya 4-stroke engines, and you don't see as many available as you do others. Now, the one other, okay, yeah. Okay, so my memory card on that camera filled up, so now you're not going to see my face anymore.